What's up, y'all? Kevin Wagstaff here. I'm putting these episodes up on YouTube a few months after we put it out on the podcast feed. So I'm getting around to editing these videos and putting them up. And I realized this second episode was pretty rough on the audio. We made a poor choice doing it out of WeWork. So I'm going to add subtitles to it. But hopefully you focus in on the content and what we're talking about, because I think this is an important part of our journey and story. So basically wanted to apologize for the lack of good audio. But I hope it's still valuable. And if it's that bad, hopefully the audio version on the podcast is a little better. But get through it. The episodes get better. We get better about our audio quality as we go. We're up to, I think, 28 episodes or so now. So again, just want to thank you for listening and stick with us. We'll keep improving and let us know if there's certain content you guys want to hear too in terms of our bootstrap journey, whether it's pre-launch all the way up till now, where we have about 32 employees. So thanks again, and we'll talk to y'all soon.
All right. What's up, everybody? I am Mike, co-founder of Spectora. My brother and I are taking you all on a journey through the last 5 years of us building our 8-figure business. What's up, Kev?
What's up, dude? How'd you feel about last week's episode, episode 1?
That was so fun. Like, I'm glad we're doing it again, and we're in a WeWork. We're actually like living in person for what? We haven't done this for like
year and a half, maybe.
Yeah,
year and a half. So it feels good to be out and about. There's people, there's a certain amount of people here, people with masks on, everyone doing it responsibly. So I love it.
Yeah, we're in a conference room. We're drinking coffee together. We're going to chat about 2017, which this was the year we went from 0 and just launching. And by the end of the year, I think we had like 200 customers, and we felt like, hey, we have something on our hands here. And in my mind, this was the hardest year of my life. And it was probably the most pivotal, I think, of like just the business. Like, we created so much of what would be the core philosophies of our business in this year. So I think it's really important for us to just dive deep into this for a whole hour and see what comes out.
Probably the most important episode we'll ever do. If you haven't listened to the first one, go back, listen to the first one, because that's the year leading up to launch. So this is just going to be all about launching. So yeah, let's get into it with basically an MVP, right? As everyone says, get your MVP and get ready to launch. So that was January 2017.
And we followed, who's that? Like Paul Graham or somebody. It's like, hey, you should be horribly embarrassed by your first launch.
Yep.
And well, we kind of were, I mean, I think we felt pride until we started getting like criticism. Since we announced it, people were like, oh, you're missing this and that, and this is garbage. You guys will never succeed. Your pricing model's dumb. But we launched it in January, and you had a sister site up that was starting to get some Twitter followers.
Yep.
And then we had a couple positive emails that made us feel like we're heading in the right direction. Like a few people that saw the potential, saw what we were trying to do. And that just like those little kind of pats on the back, I think, kept us going through when we had, in January, we had 0 customers.
0 customers. Yeah. And it's worth noting too, that like before you charge money for anything, the feedback flows and it's comfortable. Everyone's happy. Everyone's optimistic. It's when you start saying, okay, we're going to charge money for this, where it can get ugly, where people start really hammering you on feedback. And that's where I started to really feel like, oh shit, like he's not happy. This guy, whoever it was, I think it was that one guy, he's like a lawyer or something, but trying to be a home inspector. He's not even around anymore. But like he was just so pissed at every stop, because he was like, I'm paying for this now. It's not working. And so we were embarrassed, and that's good. Yeah. That means we launched maybe at the right time. I don't know.
Yeah, we got it out there in January. I think we offered like discounted subscriptions, but like we were trying to charge something. Like we weren't saying, hey, it's going to just be free. We were trying to charge something, but we gave discounts. We're like, hey, we're new.
Like 50% off, I think, right? 50% off.
Yeah.
For 6 months, I think we gave to a couple people.
And we had 1 or 2 subscriptions in January and February. So it was just enough for us to feel like we're not total failures.
So let's talk about the official launch. So like InterNACHI, the biggest association in our industry, like 25,000 members, was kind of the game. That was the game in town. That's where you wanted to be when you launched. And so we emailed their founder and said, hey, we're new. We have software. And he was like, yeah, sure. Let's do it. That's how he is. He just says, let's launch it. Let's make an announcement on the forum.
Well, we were scared as hell to email them because we knew he had a reputation for being bombastic on forums.
Yep.
And generally not super approachable. Turns out him and his brother were like amazing human beings that were like, oh yeah.
So nice.
Yeah.
So supportive.
Yeah. They're like, oh yeah, we'll put your stuff on our forum. We'll announce it for you. And you should come up for this conference we're throwing together in our headquarters, which is in Boulder. We're in Denver. And so it is just very coincidentally lucky that the headquarters, the main association in their industry was just an hour drive away.
Right.
And so we were like, oh, well, yeah, we'll come up there and like have a table. What's it cost? And they're like, it's your first conference. You can have it for free. And so
it was great.
Yeah.
Great. Oh, let me go back to the launch in the forum because I had read the forums, at the advice of one of our mentors, Jeff Gladnick, that runs his own SaaS company for dentists. He said, go hang out in the forums where your potential customers hang out and just be helpful. So I read the forums for probably a year and a half, every thread I could find. And it was scary because these home inspectors, the older guys in there, they just rip people's heads off. They just shit on everything that's new. If you're a vendor, they hate you from the start. So I remember that post being so nervous that Nick Grimico put up for us. Basically like, hey, Spectora's launching their new software, try them out. Yeah. And then I followed it up with a little post like, hey guys, here to help, excited to join the community. And then like immediately get shit on like the first like 5 to 10 comments. And just like, oh, those reports suck, or no one's going to pay $79 for that. Like I'd get sued if I used your software. Felt terrible. Felt like getting bullied on the playground. We were demoralized, right?
Yeah.
And so that was our launch to the world. Didn't feel like it was going well. Didn't feel like it went too well.
We were just like, oh shit, we've been working on this for like a year and a half.
They all hate us.
We wasted a bunch of time. What are we gonna do from here? Oh, that was tough.
Yeah, that was a rude awakening. That like it just goes to show as an entrepreneur in your mind, you're like, we're close to this. We feel a certain way about it. And you just assume that everyone else does.
Right.
And then you're like, they don't care.
As a developer, at that point, I was fondly reminiscing on the pre-launch days where I can just like imagine and create and write code and feel like, oh yeah, this is all moving. This is like real progress. I will say to the developers out there listening, like nothing is real progress unless it's getting customers, unless it's growing your revenue. Like that is all that matters, and everything else is just like
feel good. Yeah, it's pats on the back, and it hurts too. I think that's like, it's uncomfortable, right? To hear an actual person email you one-to-one or call you and say, this doesn't work, I needed to do this.
Yes, it's painful, and especially most engineers in this world are shielded from their end users, right?
Yep.
There's some product managers, there's customer service and support. It's somewhere in between the customer and the engineer. And so for any engineer trying to start a product where they're talking directly to the customers, you just have to be ready to get a bunch of negative feedback. You have to be ready to just say like, I'm going to hear this directly about what's wrong. I liked it because I think, we always talk about empathy as one of our superpowers. Mm-hmm. The ability to feel the pain that they're feeling motivates me for sure, and hopefully motivates anybody that works on anything that where the user's in pain. You want to fix it. You should want to fix it. You don't want that experience.
What would you say to me? Okay, we had a dream scenario where you were comfortable hearing it directly from the customers, and you like leaned into that. What would you even say to yourself if you weren't counselor minded like you are, or have that empathy? Because there's a lot of devs that are solo founders that I see on Twitter and talk to, and then there's a lot of like combo teams. I don't get the sense all founding devs do this, but like how do they learn to get comfortable? Because I think it's a no. I think you have to have this.
I 100% agree. I think because obviously I'm not going to tell everybody, hey, go get a master's in counseling psychology. That's not
go spend a bunch of money.
But I think my years running an agency where I was the guy talking to customers and then also building it and then getting their feedback and then getting their user feedback and making it better. You got to work like that somehow, where you get to talk to customers directly, hear the feedback, parse it, and dig into like the whys. Oh, why do you want that button moved? Why do you want a different page there? And then really think critically about that feedback and like have that product mindset. Like, well, let's figure out the underlying problem and solve it. Just learning to communicate. That's so huge. And like
short feedback loops.
Short feedback loops are huge.
This was the beginning of the phase where someone would ask for a feature or say something's not working. They'd email Mike or myself, and I'd send it to you on Slack, our Slack channel, just me and you in it. And you'd be like, all right, tell them to refresh their browser like 10 minutes later sometimes. And like that agile, attention, I think won over the first 5 to 10 customers.
Yeah.
But it's the hardest thing to do, to show them that you're for real, that you're dedicated to making like this work for them.
Yeah.
Because what would happen if we waited a week?
Right.
I don't know.
No, it was my goal to solve anything when they were on the phone with me. Like sometimes it'd just be silence. They're playing with their kids, and I'm just like, hey, hold on, I'm just changing some code here. Give me a few minutes. Okay, let's try this again.
Yeah.
And just like that customer support, because like some of our earliest jobs, like we come from pretty humble backgrounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I worked for VoiceStream before it became T-Mobile, in their customer service center is one of my first jobs. I worked at a hotel, cleaning rooms is one of the first jobs, and like, you worked in a number of customer service.
Scooped ice cream, was a roofer, worked at Foot Locker for a long stint. So yeah, we've gotten beaten up, I think, customer service wise.
Right. So but it's built into our DNA now, where it's like, hey, you please the customer, you make sure that you do right by them. That's what you do. And so that had to have won over so many of our first customers.
I think so.
So, okay, so it's January, February, we still have 0 customers. We're both in this full time. We're making about $0.
Yep.
And we're starting to have to spend on, because we didn't spend a lot early on. We spent maybe, I want to say it's $500 for the domain name.
Right.
And I think that was it. Like we had maybe a $500 fund we were on like Heroku's free tier for everything.
Free, Slack.
Our app would like go to sleep every night. And so like the first person in the morning had to wait like a full minute for it to warm up. Everything was on the free tier. We would do crazy workarounds to stay on free tiers because we didn't want to pay for anything until we had revenue. This is like our dad's influence, right? Our dad is like super frugal. He watered down the orange juice just to make it last. Like we had to learn how to make money last, right?
Don't spend money till you make money was always ringing in our heads. And like, honestly, I look up now and I'm like, holy shit, all the things we could have spent money, or like today we were doing this, the distractions of like everyone gets like Notion and this and that tool and paid this and paid that to have gifts. And we literally were spending nothing. Yeah. And so that kept our burn rate like very small, kept our runway long. So I don't know, it's a way of thinking that I think we partly were raised on, but we also, it felt like common sense.
It felt like common sense. And yet as we would eventually get to meet other startup founders, it obviously was not, because we'd find so many people that were like, how'd you put it? They were like posers. They were like trying to fake like, oh, I'm this big like startup guy. And they talk about all the things they're paying for. And then you ask their revenue and it's like, that doesn't add up. You're losing money every month to run your business. That's not a business. That's
yeah. And in a non-pandemic, like people getting like WeWork memberships and offices, maybe like I get it if you got to get out of the house, get kids, that's one thing for productivity's sake, but like just the general approach of just like unnecessary spending. Yeah. And that was something we were very laser focused on, whether by choice or by nature.
Yeah. So first quarter 2017. Oh, conference. So before the conference, let's get into that in a second. But in January, so my wife and I had been trying for a kid.
Oh.
And okay, so now we're pregnant. So now I know in August, my first kid will arrive. I'm making $0. My wife's a special ed teacher. We're still renting a room in her basement to help like reduce our burn rate as a personal, like as a house financial unit. Like our burn rate is concerning. And then you have this kid come. And so I felt the fire under my ass. I know that was a little scary.
Take us through that, because I've heard on Twitter from a couple founders that are just like, oh yeah, I started a company, had a kid in the same year. Like, and those stories are super relatable. So like, what did that do for your fire and your motivation or your fear?
It was that healthy anxiety that kicked me into that high gear that I never knew I had, where in my mind, like Spectora had to work. I didn't want to get a job. I wanted to be the father that could be present, that could be around when help was needed, to have a flexible like schedule, and not have to like get dressed up and go into an office for 8 or 10 hours a day or whatever. And I wanted to solve the money problem in my life.
Yep.
Because I've always like pursued things that were interesting and enjoyable, or things where I was learning, but I never felt like I was getting ahead financially. And so this was like, we picked a very pragmatic area. And someday we'll get into how do you choose like what you tackle. That'll be a future podcast episode. But we picked one that we thought, hey, we can do something here quickly on our own dime, not seeking funding. And so that's part of it. But then, yeah, knowing that you have to be responsible, like that provider instinct that at least many males in our society have been kind of indoctrinated into, like you're the one that's supposed to provide. Oh man, like that's a heavy burden. It was a huge shift in mentality for me. And so I was quite content working 10, 12-hour days this entire year. Like it was this long sprint that I don't know if I could do again. I had never done before.
Yep.
But yeah, that was the effect for me. I don't know how
mileage
may vary.
Yeah, but like I've heard that before of like it has that like never everlasting fire because you want to provide and maybe create a life-changing business for you and your family. That's really cool because I think it showed. I think I just remember you had like another gear that you found. And I think everyone can relate to that when it's like, okay, like, and I think it's the quote of like entrepreneurs are once crazy enough that'll avoid working 40 hours a week to work 80 hours a week or whatever, or however that goes, where, you know, you didn't want a job, you didn't want to get dressed, but then it's like, when it's our thing and it's something you're growing, you'll do it 10, 12 hours a day to have the life that we're basically getting into now, that we're like able to live now. So that's cool to hear. That'll be another episode, I think, on its own that you could even do solo, just like digging into that.
So that's some of the context. So yeah, we're trying to get our first customers. We get this conference table. We have to throw together a few bucks to buy like the shittiest tablecloth. It was like not even a tablecloth. It was like a table runner because that was like only $30 or whatever. And we ordered 2 polo shirts each so that we had something like semi-official to wear. And we ordered a stack of like 250 flyers or whatever the bare minimum number was that we can order. And
so what we spent like $100
maybe
to prepare for a conference. Okay.
Yeah. And we show up at this conference. We're in the corner. We're
single table, like not a big. Don't think like a typical conference where it's big. It's like literally like a desk. Yeah, I would say.
You and I are putting out our own personal old ass iPhones as the demo device on the table for people to play around with our newly released app. And we're just trying to talk to anybody that would walk by. We're just like, hey, how you doing?
Oh man,
you want to hear about Spectora? And we were finding our own voice and kind of trying to figure out like how we busted. Do you remember how that felt?
Just peak uncertainty, peak imposter syndrome, peak like, all right, we're just fucking trying to meet people and be nice and personable, and shake hands. And we've never been great at being schmoozy and salesy, so I think that wasn't our angle. But it was more just like, hey, how you doing? I'm Kevin. How's your day going? What are you learning today? Or what do you use for software? And we didn't know what the hell. We didn't know anything. We didn't know what to say.
And we were just hopefully trying to absorb, right? We're just like, hey, tell me about your business. Like, how'd you get started? What'd you do beforehand? Like, I remember that was always my icebreaker line. And then they'd launch into stuff, and I'd always be learning like a little bit here and there. I remember some of the other software vendors would come by and kind of like, look down at us, and maybe someone would talk to us and be like, oh, let me give you some suggestions. Like this app, the way it loads, that's shit. Like, and kind of making us feel like totally the new kid on the block.
That was, I don't even remember what came of it, but I just remember like, man, this is hard being a new kid on the block.
I think we got a lot of business cards. I remember personally following up with every business card in the stack. Just like, hey, thanks for chatting with us. Here's a link to our software. Let me know if you have any questions. Happy to help. One of our first customers came out of that, Max Schroeder. I don't know if he's still in business, but he was
that's right.
He was somebody that talked to us, and he was like, oh, I like the design aspect. I used to be a software designer, and now I'm getting to become a home inspector. I just really like your vibe. And he became one of our first customers. And so something came of it.
I think the lesson there too is that like our imposter syndrome was like at an all-time high, and we felt that. So we were like projecting that in a way, but then also from a home inspector's perspective or any customer, they just see your booth, they see your banner, they see you have a product. So like they're probably thinking of us higher than we were thinking of ourselves. So it's like in hindsight, you're like, they just thought we were another software maybe at the time.
Right.
So that's where you have to have that confidence and own it. And I think we did. It's like, it's fading now, but I'm like, I feel like we always at least presented ourselves well, stood up straight, shook hands, eye contact, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we weren't those lazy vendors that just like sat behind a booth. We were always like milling about, circling about, trying to talk.
Standing in front of the table.
Yes.
That's like I know conferences aren't a thing, but once they are, it's like you were very adamant about being like, stand in front.
Yeah.
Never behind.
We still do that, right? When we go to conferences and we bring like 5 team members, we're like, you don't sit down,
walk around.
Yeah. And so the biggest thing that would come out of this we were talking to everybody that worked at Internachi, the association.
That's right.
And eventually they were like, hey, we do this like new inspector training class. I know you guys do like marketing. Do you want to do just like a half-hour talk on how inspectors can market themselves? And we were like, oh shit.
Yes.
Yeah, let's teach your new inspectors. So every month we got to go up to Boulder and do like a little talk to 20 or 30 new home inspectors.
Man.
And they were just like, yeah, talk about whatever. And so we get to plug our software a little bit, but we were making sure we were delivering like real value. And that was huge. Like, so many of our early users came out of that class. And it was just us, I think, being approachable and friendly and wanting to give value and offer to help wherever we could. Talk about that a little bit.
Man, that's so grateful for that opportunity. That's like serendipity or luck, but creating your luck, if you want to call it that. But like when we were at that conference, I think we made it a point to just talk to everyone we could, shake everyone's hand, be friendly with the staff because they're nice people for one, and two, they were working hard to put on the event. So just by kind of putting ourselves out there completely and being fully present, they took a liking to us. So I think like there's just something to be said there for like being fully in any moment, because you never know.
Right.
Like you're at a conference, you're talking to whoever, you just never know what's going to come. And so like that just blows my mind how we just got along well. They skewed younger with their employees too. That helped, where it's just like we're kind of the young kids in the industry. So if you can be in an industry where you're the young cool kids, that helps for sure.
Yeah.
But man, that relationship, so serendipitous.
Yeah. So by the end of the first quarter, by the end of March of 2017,
so 3 months in,
7 subscribers,
seven customers.
So we were making about $500 a month.
500 MRR.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that felt amazing.
Huge. I see people on Twitter, like there's this building, everyone's building in public now. So it's like this thing where it's like people document everything, and
right.
They're celebrating all these milestones, and it's great because I'm happy for them when I see it, when I'm just like, dude, we were like ringing the register every time on Slack,
Yeah. And we had so many like bug fixes that were going on during this time. We were starting to talk to people during the free trial. And I just remember like, every day I'm just getting slammed with like, hey, this breaks. Is your system down right now? And it was, it started getting intense as users started to come on board. And we benefited from some of those early people that we met they loved what we're about. They started like telling people, they started posting in the Facebook groups. They started posting in the forums like, hey, give these guys Spectora, give them a look. And so we created some fans. And I think that's still something at the heart of our kind of growth strategy.
Do you think, it sounds funny, but like by launching quicker with an unrefined product allowed us the opportunity to build those fans? Because think about if we just had 7 customers and then we just went to go look for 100 more, would we have built the same relationship where like you're on the phone with them while like fixing things? I don't know.
I don't think so. Because, I actually wrote down some of the names of our early people just to jog our memory. And they're all like, the vast majority of them are still very engaged. They're still our biggest proponents on Facebook. They still give us feedback. And I think it was so crucial to like set up that nature of the relationship where it's like, we're founders that listen. We're founders that care, that want to have that beginner mindset of like, we're not home inspectors. We don't know much about home inspection. You guys are the experts. You tell us. We're the experts at building software, building processes and systems.
Such a good line.
So
that line worked so well. And it's funny in hindsight now, if I was giving us, advice 4 years ago, it's like treat those first 10 people that use your app and engage with you like you're going to know them for 5 years, because at this point we've known them for 5 years. And it's kind of amazing to see that relationship grow. So around that time, we had also launched, I'm gonna talk about the OPRs real quick. So like, we were thinking like, what's our distribution strategy? How are we gonna get customers, right? It was just like, okay, we get shit on the forums. We have minimal social presence. We don't have any SEO yet. So we launched something called an online presence review. So we were just leveraging kind of my background in SEO and digital marketing to say, hey, we'll review your website and your whole presence for free. Of course, we had a motive of like, check out our software. So that hooked initial 5-10 people to where I put in, a couple hours of work, like literally giving them like an in-depth audit. So like something an agency would charge like $1,000 or $2,000 for. And that, I don't know if I think that maybe got us 1 or 2, people to engage and try us out, but it was basically a reason to reach out to people. So instead of just saying, hey, I'm selling you something, it was just like, hey, I checked out your website, noticed your page speed is, a little lacking. Do you want a whole report on this? Like, I'll do it for you for free. So that was a hook initially. I don't know how much it got us, but it's something. There's always creative ways I think you can add value.
Yeah, it was huge, and giving value first before expecting to receive any monetary gain. That was really big, and I think it also led to learning that a lot of our customers weren't comfortable with how to set up web hosting, where to get a website built for them, how to do basic SEO tasks, marketing. That was where there was a lack of stuff in the industry, and so we were like, we'll do that. And here's a price tag that we pulled directly out of our ass. And so for a while, I think that whole services side floated us. It got us like another 1,000 in MRR, where we were doing like $200 a month for this guy, $400 a month for that guy, and based on how much time each one took.
Right.
And that definitely helped that first year, where we felt like, cool, we're still growing the software piece, but the services side we can kind of count on as revenue coming in to whatever it was, start actually paying for like a roll bar subscription or upgrade Heroku from the not free tier.
And at the time I had built, I think, a couple WordPress sites, but I wasn't proficient at all. I wouldn't consider myself an expert. And I think they kept asking, like, oh, do you build websites too? And then, we looked at each other like, I guess we build websites now. So I learned by doing. Yeah. And I think that's just the biggest lesson there. It was like, all right, get really good, spend hours and days doing tutorials, learn a bunch of different themes, and learn what good websites look like. So
you became an amazing web designer just from scratch. Necessity. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was huge, because then you charge people for hosting and keeping their site updated. That's an underrated thing. I think you don't want to be an agency full time, of course, but gosh, like I used to tell them, like, hey, you can go host with GoDaddy for like $10 a month, but good luck getting a hold of someone to like fix your site when it's down or update a plugin. It's like, that's what I do. So
just do that. We give them free edits. We take care of security updates, and it gave them, because they already were buying into the trust factor with us. They knew that we started building ourselves as, hey, we're going to be your tech team. Anything you need on that full front, we will do, and you just worry about home inspecting, because that's your job. And they love that. And so,
good line.
Yeah. So suddenly we had some customers like, oh yeah, I use your software. I use web hosting for you. I have my SEO and marketing services through you. And so, gosh, that really helped us. And then I think from a kind of business centric perspective, that makes it sticky, right? They're like, I do everything with them. From their perspective, it makes it easy. They write into one person. They're like, hey, I need these things, and here's some thoughts on this. It makes it easy for them instead of trying to piece together 4 different services to do it all. So whether by luck or strategy, I don't remember which it was, but we just, suddenly had ourselves another arm to our business.
And I remember Jeff Gladnick, he had that model, the hybrid agency SaaS. Yeah. But then his advice to us was like, don't do it. Yeah. He was like, don't do it. And we did it anyway. So I think, advice comes and goes. I think like you could probably find people in both camps where they're like, agency is expensive, it's unscalable. Yeah. But it floated us for a while until software ramped up. And so now it's a good chunk, like 10 or 15% of our business. So take for that what you will. So,
so at some point in the second quarter, so like, let's flash forward to May, 16 customers,
so
16 paying software customers.
5 months in, 16 customers.
We decide, so there's a big kind of competitor / integration partner in our space. They did like the business and scheduling tools, and we decide, hey, we're going to integrate with them. It was kind of a friendly relationship, but that we were hearing that request from a lot of people. So we're like, okay, cool, we'll integrate with them, but we're also building a lot of features to compete directly with them. And so that's kind of one of those interesting moves that, as you learn the industry, you just realize some things you have to do, some things, as you hear it over and over, you realize, okay, that wasn't our initial intent, but we're going to pivot.
Is this a good time to talk about not like feature blackmail, where it's just like early on you get requests for everything, every integration? Like, how did you tease out which ones would get us? Because all of them at first feel like they're going to get you customers. But like, how did you know which ones to actually do?
I wish there was a good answer to this. It's so complex. Like in my mind, there was this intuition of like, what are we hearing the most? What's it? Every time I talk to somebody, how close are they actually? Like, if I really build this, will they sign up? And having to ask those questions, like, hey, if I build this, are you in?
yeah, legitimately asking them, I think sometimes.
Yeah, being so explicit, not really assuming anything.
It's hard to ask early on because, it's a scary question to say, like, will you pay us money?
Right. And there's definitely features we built that like, I'm pretty sure that that's still the only guy that uses it.
Yep.
There's features we built and then go, like crickets, like
Yeah.
they just ghosted us and we never heard from them again. And they're like, we built that feature for you.
Yeah.
And then there's like little things that we did that everybody's like, this is amazing. And I'm going to go tell everybody about how this is way better than all the competitors and come over and use Spectora. So some of it's dumb luck. I think some of it's intuition and just like something that you refine as you go.
And I think we looked at how big the company was and how it, like we would stalk people on social media and be like, man, this guy's really vocal or whatever. And he's asking for this. And so I think maybe that influenced some of it too, to say like, this guy's going to be a megaphone on in Facebook groups, things like that. Which I know isn't the case for every industry, but it sure helped with a couple of those first couple integrations, I think.
And I think there's a certain persona that gravitates towards these new platforms where they want to be influential in the development of the platform. And they're usually loud and they will tell everybody when things are awesome. And then a year later, they're going to tell everybody when you're not listening to them anymore because they still want that. And so we definitely had a few of those guys where they loved us initially and then they were shitting on us a year later. That's okay. That's part of the journey, I think.
How did we make people feel a part of it just by listening? Like I'm trying to think of what goes into like those early raving fans, like our service, like immediate responses, making them feel like you are a priority. You're like our only customer. So that's one.
Like let's do that one first. You and I would have our email open on one monitor, and as soon as an email came in, it's like you and I were racing to see who can answer it first. And probably more so your responsibility when I was heads down the code. How did you do that? Like everybody was getting 30-second response time via email, and we're getting like several dozen, if not 100 emails a day.
I mean, this might sound cliche and stupid, but like I was a hungry dog, man. Like I've been dreaming of that moment when someone actually gives a crap about our product and writes it. Like when I was working at Charles Schwab sitting in a cubicle, literally I was dreaming of the day where we had a product that people would pay us money for. So then in my head, I'm like, I just tried to vividly put myself in every moment and just be like, this person could pay us money someday, maybe for 10 years, maybe for 20 years, and then go. So I don't know. It was just straight up hunger and fire, I guess, which is a very cliche blanket answer, but like, I don't know. I fucking wanted it, dude. Like I like that feeling, and this was so fun reminiscing, talking back on it. Is like, it's like I want to try and like actually put this out there and get in the mind space of being like, I want it all. I want every single home inspector to know that we're here to like dominate. We're here to stay. And I feel like you can't do that if you're not answering like right away, direct, transparent, empathetic.
And it doesn't really matter what time. And I think you gave out your personal cell phone to some of the early customers too.
First 100, I think, where I was just like, hey, text me, call me any time of day, email me.
Yeah. I remember
we both jumped out of bed. I think that, hundreds.
My phone dinged. Didn't matter if I was like in bed, if I was, like eating. Yeah. I would just be like, hey, gotta do this. And shout out to my wife, Leah, who was so supportive. I remember during some of those 15-hour days of working straight, she would just be bringing me down like 3 meals a day and just be like, hey, don't forget to eat, don't forget to get up and stretch. And she was just so supportive. I can see that being like so influential and necessary during that year. If I didn't have her support,
supportive spouse, because having lived through it, we only have our own experience to speak on, but like, I'm so glad we didn't have work-life balance, because we'll never know how much that like contributed. But I can't imagine if you and I were like, let's just call it a day at 3 and go play volleyball, or like, let's just take a walk at the park. Like those customers float away. And so like the fact that we were like maniacs for like an entire year, I think that's the reason we're here. And so to me, when people try to do it all, I'm almost like, are your customers going to feel that energy?
And let's be real, like that was so fucking hard. The sacrifices there. I know my health declined. I know my mental health declined. And we didn't get to do as many fun things. Like that year, there was like no vacations.
There was no fun.
There was no days
There was no fun. Yeah,
it was fun that we were building business. I was energized. I was engaged every single day. But there was aspects of my life that previously I worked out every day. Like I used to play volleyball 20, 30 hours a week. And now I was playing, like, if I got an hour or two a week, I was like, oh, yeah, I felt pretty good, but I got to get back to work, guys.
And it dropped off.
Yeah. And so is the sacrifice necessary? For us, it was, I think. I don't know, maybe everybody else's spaces are different, niches are different, but like for us, I do not see how we could have gotten there without just having that year.
Yeah, that never turn off mentality, because to me, it's like an odds thing. Now, in hindsight, of course, I don't know how I thought about the time, but like, it's like, do you want to give yourself a 90+% chance of like really making it and becoming a player? Or do you want to give yourself a 50% chance by still keeping everything in your life like very
in harmony.
In harmony. Yeah. Just, I think millennials are guilty of wanting it all.
Right.
We want it all, and we want everything. We don't want to work that hard, but we want to have great everything. But like,
I want a multi-million-dollar business, but like, I just can't give up my social life, and I need to cook, and I gotta walk my dog.
Yeah,
like,
I stopped watching shows. I stopped watching TV. I didn't do anything else but think about how to charge to 100 customers. So that's not to pat ourselves on the back, but that's just to say, like, literally, we had blinders on, and it was just like, there's nothing else that matters.
Yeah. Can I rant real quick? Anytime people are like, oh, I don't have time for that. What show are you into right now? Because if you haven't answered that fucking question, you have time. Cut out media. Don't listen to any podcast. Don't listen to all of that.
Talk to your customers.
Talk to your customers. Work on your product.
Talk to your customers.
If you do anything else, it better be to recharge your battery so you can go and talk to more customers and to build your product. And like, gosh, you hear the excuses, then you realize, oh, well, I'm binging this show right now, or oh, I'm trying to fuck that. Like, if you're serious about building a business, you have to throw yourself all in, and you can't do it on evenings and weekends. You can't do it from 9 to 5.
Nope.
That is not, at least in our experience. Let's not throw out blanket generalities, but like in our experience, that was the way.
It felt like we were like all in 2 times over when we were like becoming like friends with these first like 10, 15, 20, 50 customers. And we knew their family, like you said, we knew their families, we knew their dog's name.
Right.
You can't do that working part-time.
Right.
You just can't.
Yeah. All right. So another thing I would do, anytime I was debating how to build the next feature, I would email out like all the people that I knew would have good insight. Just like, hey, I want to get your opinion on this. Here's some mock-ups. Give me some feedback. And people would be like very honored that they got to kind of dictate the direction of the platform.
Totally.
And then they felt even more of a fan. And then they would go and tell other people like, hey, guess what? I just helped create this feature in Spectora. And
ownership.
Yes.
The ownership.
Totally.
Was that Facebook? When did we create the Facebook user group? Around that time?
I don't know.
Probably around mid-year. But
so. Yeah.
Facebook user group, one of the biggest and most influential things, because there's a centralized place where our customers hung out. So like, we're fortunate that Facebook has infrastructure where groups are just easy to manage and maintain. I couldn't imagine trying to manage like millennials or Gen Z, because they're all over the place. They're on everything.
Yeah, we're fortunate that inspectors are what, 35 to 65-year-old men that
are on Facebook.
Just love chilling on Facebook.
And so we would go there to ask questions constantly and get feedback and distill that feedback. So not easy to do.
So come summer, we have like 40, 50 customers, June and July.
So that's a 2,000 MRR?
Something like that. We're getting up there, right? It's probably closer to 5,000 once you include all of the stuff. So we're like, oh, damn, this is like a business now. It doesn't feel like trivial money.
Right.
I mean, it's not really enough to sustain a lifestyle.
So we were paying ourselves yet?
No, we wouldn't pay ourselves this whole year, I don't think.
Okay.
Maybe in December. But we were getting so many emails a day, so many bugs, so many feature requests. It was a lot. We were having database issues because like we were just hitting bottlenecks. Yeah. I don't think I'm like this amazing engineer. I was basically trying to always move quickly, incurring technical debt. Not really, we didn't write tests. There's so many
quick
things.
And dirty, truly quick and dirty.
Move fast and break things, whatever you want to say. And we were hitting some of those issues, right? And so I just remember feeling like the weight was on my shoulders to like make sure that these guys could do their jobs. And when we're getting just like, I wrote down some of the sample titles of emails of like crashing or urgent in all capital letters, or is Spectora down, question mark, exclamation point, question mark. Those were the titles of emails I was getting like every single day. And gosh, it was a hard period, but it was also one of those where I knew like, hey, there's nobody else in the world that knows this system like I do. So I need to fix it, because if I don't, nobody else will. There's no help, there's no phone a friend. And that to me is like, we want every person in our team now to have that mentality of like, oh, I can fix this. Like we don't ever want it to be like, this is somebody else's problem, because that true ownership, I think, is what leads to the motivation to get stuff done.
And makes customers feel like you're really in the room, in the bunker with them.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that for a second. So that period was, and to give context, home inspectors, you buy a house, you get a home inspector for people that don't know, and they're doing the home inspection typically with the home buyer and the real estate agent with them. High stress, right? So like, I know everyone has a product where it's like, it has to work in that moment or else they're literally calling you. You're fortunate if you have a product, right? Where it's just like, oh yeah, I could just figure that out later. Ours was like, he's in the driveway with two people staring at him.
Yeah.
He calls me on the phone and says, "This is bullshit, Kevin. This shit ain't, this isn't, just cursing me out basically." It was just, the lawyer guy. And I was just sweating. I was sweating probably every other day because, Mike and I, we were both just like, oh my God, all right, the fix is coming. And Mike, I know, is just hammering away.
I'm hammering away. You're being so, like, Kevin's superpower is just a way with people. Like, you have a way of sliding over to the side of the table with anybody, making them feel at ease, making them feel like, hey, I got your back. We will fix this. And so I felt like you were almost the shield sometimes of all those negative emotions. And then you would relay to me what needed to happen in a way that didn't put the stress on me as much.
Usually.
And so usually.
Sometimes I'm hitting the panic button like, it's not working for fun.
No, you did it so well, way better than you think, because then I felt like, okay, cool. I feel the urge to fix this, but I don't feel like the anger that's gonna like make me kind of buckle. And so then that just let me like get down to business, and you're like talking to him, and then we're checking in the background on Slack. And so whether that was intentional or just by accident, it was good.
It goes back to empathy, right? Because I put myself in that, I'm picturing myself in my house. I had a desk out in the living room because it's just like we didn't have a home office. That is, and just on the phone with like Ryan and John, and just being like, man, like genuine empathy of like, this sucks. I'm so sorry. Like, of course we don't want you to go through this. Like, we're going to make it better. Like, give us a minute, whatever. And just telling them like, hey, stick with us. Like, stick with this. Like, we're dedicated to make this work. And just telling them really how you feel, as opposed to maybe the robotic, like, I'm sorry, you're experiencing that. Well, I'll file a ticket. But, it's like, no. Like, I'm talking to Mike right now. We're going to work on this. Like, that's like just the real in the bunker mentality. I don't know.
Gosh, and that authenticity and empathy of just like, fuck, dude, I'm so sorry. Like, your business is being impacted by this. That's on us. We're gonna make this right. Like, what can we do? Would you like some credit so next month is free?
Yeah.
Like, we would do that so often because we're just like, let's extreme ownership, right?
Yeah.
This is all our fault. Even if they did something like kind of wonky, like in terms of flow, it's like, no, our software allowed that to happen. Like, we're never blaming the user for anything. Yeah, like it's on us, and we're gonna make it better.
Because we need raving fans at that point, and we need like people that just literally will tell others. And I think you can't do that if you're like, no, you're still gonna pay for this like buggy software that's like not really working. You still need your money. It's like no. We had runway, and that's why the last week we talked about having runway.
Yeah,
I think that impacts your decision making. So when you talk about runway, it's like, are you gonna give that credit over generously?
Right.
Or are you gonna like be like, no, I need that $60.
Right. Oh yeah. If you're too focused on that money, it's nice. We didn't have investors making demands of us. We had supportive spouses. We had some money in the bank, a little bit of savings to prepare for these exact moments. Like, that was all so key. Like, when people think is like suddenly you got lucky, it's like, no, we spent probably many years of our life preparing for this kind of situation.
Right.
We'll do a whole episode on that. But so that we did a lot of things that it would be hard to replicate at different phases of life too.
Completely.
Let's also be real that like post having kids, I can see what we were doing there as being like a lot more difficult.
Very difficult, very different.
But during that time period, we did what we had to.
But I think like I'm thinking of like if someone's in a phase of life, or if you were in a phase of life where we're just not where we wanted to be, or we didn't have a business and our finances weren't great, maybe, I think those are the conversations in real households of like, you know what, I'm going to sprint for a year or two to try to change our life forever. It's like, man. But anyway, so August comes.
Gosh, August comes.
You have your first kid.
My first daughter, Ayana, arrives. I remember we're in the delivery room. She's born. Touching moment. An hour later, I'm in the waiting room with my laptop open, fixing a bug on the phone with a customer. Our mom and dad are holding Ayana, and I'm just like hearing the baby crying in the background, and I'm like, oh fuck, we might lose this customer. Like, we can't lose this customer. And that to me was like one of those crystallized moments that epitomizes the entrepreneur hunger and discipline that is
Sacrifice.
necessary. I don't like, yeah, I did not feel like a good dad during the first year of Ion's life.
Yeah.
That was in my mind, that was the sacrifice that was needed so I can be a great dad for, the rest of her life. And gosh, that's just one illustration of it.
So we had 71 customers at that time. So it's just like losing one mattered, right?
Totally.
And so I don't even remember like how much time you took off. It wasn't much. I think you just needed like a day or two. I don't even remember what.
I don't remember either. What were your thoughts when you're like, oh fuck, Mike's about to go have a baby? Like, what's going to happen?
Oh man, I was like, this is terrifying. This is, just thinking of like the time and the effort, and some people's mentality changes in many different ways, whether it's hunger or it's just like the pressure to be there, and be a great dad. Like I've been there, and it's like, it consumes you, and sometimes it makes everything else less important. And so I was so conflicted, obviously, because it's like it's family on one hand, and then it's also our other baby. That's going to feed us. We haven't stopped paying us yet, but it's like there's still so much uncertainty too. Honestly, we didn't know we were going to make it when we had 71 customers.
No.
So
there was inklings, because I remember the conversation like earlier in the year between me and Leah was like, hey, by the time Ayana's born, if you guys aren't making, I want to say it was like 10K a month or something, you should try and find a job. You should find some sort of contract position, something to like make sure we have income.
Right.
Because Leah was going to stop working.
Right.
And then we were like, are we going to still have a roommate when we have a kid in the house? And so that conversation put even more fire under my ass. Like, okay, by the time she's born, that was like my ticking, like my doomsday clock or whatever. And we didn't quite have it by August, but I was like telling Leah, hey, give us like 2 more months. We're close. We're feeling the momentum build. I do believe this is going to be a good thing, but I can't go looking for a job right now. And she was like, cool, I trust you. I see the momentum building. So keep going. And so I think that led to September. We were like, we're going to do a one-time annual sale, like steep discounts, but we just wanted to get a 1-year commitment from like these loyal fans that were paying monthly, the people that were maybe on the fence. We just need to give them like a steep discount. And so we put it out as like the one time. We were trying to be like Apple, right? Like we don't give them
one-time sale.
The one-time sale. And
what was the sale price? What do you remember? Like, was it?
There's probably like 20% off, 30%
okay.
off.
So effectively like maybe 60 or 70 a month paid annually, right? Something like that. Okay.
And when we did that, it kind of worked. Like we had not like hundreds, it was like several dozen, to where we saw the bank account and we're like, oh, whoa, that's like a sizable figure. Like we're onto something here.
Yeah. That was terrifying, because I think we questioned, every business questions themselves, like to do sale, not do sales, like price higher than always discount, or just be bottom of the barrel. And and so I think we took a risk there based on, I don't know, intuition of like, let's see if it works. Let's test it out.
And I think it was a way of testing the commitment of our customers. Like if it didn't work, then we'd know, hey, maybe our product's a little too shaky. Like if they can't buy in for a solid year.
True.
So knowing that some people were like, they felt trust in us enough to commit for a year, that felt good.
Yeah.
Like the dollars don't matter. It was the trust feeling of like, you have some people that are with us.
What did we spend on anything after that?
Maybe we, instead of piping every error to Slack, we bought Rollbar.
Like, what did we, like, so that's 100 customers. We probably had 10, 20 grand maybe at the end of the year.
Yeah. And oh, and also in September, I think we got our first like serious offer for acquisition, which was like, whoa.
Oh man, that's right.
Yeah. So there's a player in the space that was starting to like acquire smaller companies, and they offered us like, it was $2 million, but it was mostly in stock in their company, and there's like golden handcuffs for 3 years. We were very like skeptical of the offer overall, but just the fact that people saw some value in what we were building, like we kind of debated if we should, but then we're like, dude, we see so much momentum here, we're not going to sell yet. But we thought about it. I remember I was out in my yard, sitting on the hammock and like really having a deep discussion with you of like, oh wait, we've worked on this couple like 2.5 years. We work for 3 years. We have maybe $1 million in the bank. That's changing money.
And this was a company that raised a ton of money. And their CEO flew out to meet with us.
Mhm.
I remember that. And I remember like it was yesterday. And that was terrifying because we didn't know that. I mean,
Still
you
imposter
know,
syndrome.
when you're just working out of your house and then you're like suddenly having all this like corporate jargon speak with someone that's like well-versed and has sold multiple companies. We were just like trying our best to just like, I don't know, speak like we know what's up. When in reality, we were just like,
I'm Googling like run rate accretive. What does accretive mean to your revenue? Out of our league, right? But it made us feel like we're on to something.
Validated in a way. Yeah.
Massive validation. So September was like such a joyous month for us, I think, between that and like the one-time sale.
Still haven't paid ourselves a dime.
Still haven't paid ourselves.
So that's the lesson in itself of like, you know, there's always that game of like, check the business bank account, see how much is going up. That feels good. You don't want to take any out because then you feel like it's like chipping away at something you've been working at. And so there's a little bit of that. But on top of, I think we just didn't want to get too ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
We have always been late to spend on anything.
Late to spend. Yeah.
That's a good philosophy. That's something that I think just now, 5 years in, where we're starting to like hire ahead when we need it.
Yeah.
That it's just now.
We still don't pay for Slack, right?
No. Sorry, Slack, if you're listening, one day, if you give us enough value.
But yeah, late to spend of like, wait until it kind of hurts in some ways. And some people I bet would have the opposite philosophy where they're like, get ahead of it, you know, spend. We just took the different approach where we felt late to make every purchase and hire.
Maybe this is a difference of bootstrapping versus if you get funded, maybe you should get all the tools, hire well ahead of when you need it so you have the infrastructure.
To grow.
Yep. Yeah. Bootstrapping, especially if you're coming from very little money in the bank, the mentality worked for us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think to this day, I think you even build a culture of that. So like even your first hire, your second hire, just showing them like, okay, what's the true need for this tool?
Yeah.
Like, how's that going to equate to revenue?
Right.
That's a hard question to answer.
Yeah.
And what are the workarounds?
What are the workarounds? How much time does it cost to do the workaround?
Yep.
That is, those are the questions that we still ask anytime somebody comes to us with like, hey, I think we need this tool. We're like, well, we've been getting by fine without it. Tell me
why.
How's it going to impact us?
Bootstrapper DNA right there, man.
Yes.
Like that's, there's so much distractions and noise right now with like, you need this tool or this enablement thing and email newsletter. It's like, I don't know. Maybe you need to pick up the phone.
Yeah. Just get customers. So we're rolling into October.
So things pick up steam in October, November, looking back at these numbers.
Oh, totally. So October, we get to about 150 paying users. We're getting some of those, like, it's a different kind of user. Some of them are not the early adopter. Like I'm totally cool with like giving impact and bugs. And they're type that just sign up and don't talk to us. And
so this is word of mouth at work at this point, right? This is where word of mouth starts to really pick up steam.
Yes. Which of course we've never spent on advertising at this point. Everything is either you and I direct outreach or word of mouth and just being active in forums and Facebook groups. Like our marketing budget's still $0.
No, it's a couple grand advertising. So we're putting out ads. We do a little bit. Yeah. Capterra, we do some stuff on there.
Oh, I don't remember if we were doing that already.
Oh, no, not back then. No, at this point, you're right. No, now we are. But yeah, at this point, you're right.
But back then, it was just all
our time.
Yeah, our time.
We were marketing.
Everything we did was our time. Yeah. And so we're finally starting to spend on stuff. I think we upgrade, like Heroku to like higher premium dynos or whatever it is so that we are just less apt to crash. And October was super fun because Denver Startup Week is this like big event that happens in Denver. And we're like, dude, we're like legit startup founders now. We're like, because we'd gone the previous year, attended some sessions and just absorbed knowledge, but we were still such imposters, right? We didn't have a company, we didn't have customers. This year we're like, dude, let's like get ourselves some startup-y t-shirts and let's like just go around to events. And if people ask us about what's Spectora, and we'll start talking to them. And so we met a few other friends that were like in the startup scene that it's fun. Like we were friends with them. A couple of them now work in our company. And, one of them, his company got bought out and he's on his own different journey and we still keep in touch. And so this was so cool to network with other people doing the same thing we were. And somebody that we can talk openly about, like, oh, we're at like 12K MRR. Isn't that crazy? And
you celebrate together and you get excited. And so like there's nothing replaces going to a massive startup event. I know Austin has their, South by Southwest. I'm sure there's plenty in San Francisco, but like something like Denver Startup Week feels special. Like, I don't know if we're just in the bubble, but like they say it's one of the biggest events of its kind where people are just, it's all startup people walking the streets and hanging out.
Yeah.
and events at there's kind of like a cribs version of startups where you go and see. It's just so inspiring. So like I think that was fuel for us to be like, we're a part of this now. Like we're real startup bootstrap guys.
Yeah,
now.
part of the community. And I think sense of community and like having people to both commiserate with and celebrate with is so important, because this can be a lonely thing, especially like it's great that we have each other, right? Like you and I would just talk to each other, help ourselves through the dark times. But like I can't even imagine the plight of the solo founder where you're just like it's in a bubble. You better find some other founders to hang out with.
I think that's why the build in public thing's so big on Twitter. Is like that's their community. They can like speak to someone, whereas like we just talked every day for like 2 years straight, basically. Yeah. So which that's a whole other, that's a good episode, I think, topic too, of like how to stay connected as co-founders. Because I think it's easy to kind of get lost in your own lives versus like, okay, what's the goal? What are we doing?
Yeah. We maybe around this time started like shopping around for some contractor help. Like we had a couple misfires. We didn't really know how to hire well. We were like, oh, well, hire people like us. And it turns out it's really hard to have people that, you know, have the same hunger and motivation for what we could afford to pay, which was not much.
Right.
And so we had a couple misfires.
What do we do? Just throw out stuff on like Indeed or Craigslist probably. And yeah, we had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah, we had some good people that just didn't maybe have like the skill set and the like dedicated time to do what we wanted them to do.
And we didn't know we were looking for it because we did a little bit of everything every day and we're so scattered.
Yeah.
And so it's like, boy, hiring at that phase was like.
Yeah, we kind of set people up for failure. And, you know, and especially because it was like a contractor position, because we couldn't afford like, I don't know if we could have afforded or not. We didn't want to afford like full-time employees and think about benefits and all those things that just seem so like next chapter.
Yeah. And not even having time to step back and think about kind of like what we were just in sprint mode, heads down.
Right.
And so I think, you know, when you don't even have time to sit and think about what is in your job description or what you're really looking for, it's like, no wonder they didn't work out.
Yeah. We were just like, we had somebody start, we're like, hey, answer emails when they come in and then build websites when you're not doing that. And then we have these marketing plans. So can you write up some like just newsletters that we're going to send out on their behalf? And oh yeah, keep learning the software because we're building features fast. So make sure you know everything coming out.
In the industry that you've never heard of, that you didn't know existed.
Yeah. And this poor guy's like, I have a kid and like, I don't have 80 hours a week like you guys do. And and so great dude, but it just wasn't like good. We didn't know. It was our failure as managers. We had to learn that the hard way over the course of like the next year.
Right.
But man, we get into November, we have like 184. By the end of the year, we end up with like 206 software subscribers, 25 web hosting accounts, and 7 SEO plans, which totaled like 30K MRR. So we went from 0 to 30K MRR
1 year.
In 1 year. Like I said, hardest year of our lives, but man, so much happened in that year. And it felt like by the end of the year, like, hey, like this still feels like it could all fall apart, but we might be able to pay ourselves here. And I think in December, we might have ran our first payroll. Like we might have said, hey, let's pay ourselves $2K each. Because I remember that was like if I paid myself $2,000, like we would very frugally.
We can make this work.
That was like, cool. Our savings would flatline. Like that's my mortgage plus bills, groceries.
Right.
And so, yeah, that was like, I think we hugged and then got back to work. You know, that was like our celebration.
Well, and this is funny. Everyone says celebrate, you know, small and big wins. And we always talked about it. I think we never did, but like we like virtually high-fived, or I don't know what we did. We hugged, maybe we went out and got like dinner, but we probably didn't. We were probably just like, at 400 customers, at 500 customers, we're going to go big. We still have, you know, every benchmark we've done.
Here's how shitty we are at celebrating, and something that we're starting to do better just now. One of our first customers sent us a gift certificate to a fancy restaurant here in town for $200. And we're like, dude, we're going to use that once we hit 200 customers.
200 customers, yeah.
I think we actually use it when we hit like 1,500 customers just last year.
And the gift card just sat there. And I think that speaks to something that's probably a good topic for another episode of like wanting to celebrate and mini celebrating in our heads, but we never really let ourselves fully like feel like we made it. I don't know. And I don't know if that kept the hunger and the fire going of like, you know, with the target moving or if that's really unhealthy. I don't know.
I don't know either. I know that only in the recent like couple of years have I felt like, oh, we're not on shaky ground. Our life is pretty good now, and we can relax a little bit.
I'm gonna buy those new socks. I'm gonna buy those new boxers, whatever, you know?
Right. And so I don't know. I think for everybody, they got to understand themselves and know like, hey, either you need like constant celebrations to keep motivated, or maybe you like seeing that next hurdle in front of you. Every time we clear a hurdle, we look to the next.
Yep.
And I don't know, maybe that's more how we're wired.
That's true. Everyone's different. I think some people like that reward that motivates them. Whereas me, that I don't want to feel comfortable and complacent. So I'm always just like, all right, next goal, cool. We'll celebrate later, and then organically celebrate when it happens.
Yeah.
So, man,
hell of a year.
I feel like we just relived it. Like I'm like a little exhausted. Where I'm like, wow, that was an all-out sprint, and it truly was. I think like we're trying not to be revisionist historians here of like, oh, it was this way. It's like, no, it was a blur.
Yeah. It was totally a blur
of uncertainty,
sleep deprivation. What do you, if you just had to pick a few words to describe 2017 as a whole, what would they be?
Relentless, sprint, empathy. I remember listening to like the same rap song, like it was a song by Big Sean called Fire. I'd wake up and listen to it literally every morning for the entire year. Like that's how weird, I don't know what you want to even call it, but like somehow I identified with like the hustle and the grind of that song, where I just like the first line just about something like waking up and getting to it, where I was just like, that was it. I know it's more than a couple words, but like that I woke up and listened. I still listen to that song and almost get emotional because I'm just like, man, I woke up and just got so hyped to just like either get yelled at or to like hear about bugs or to fail at reaching, the next few customers. But like, you have to find ways to fuel yourself. I don't know if it's words from your spouse or music or I just use music.
Yeah. I don't know what it was. I remember, so there's a room in my basement that I turned into the office, right? Got a standing desk. So I was like, okay, I can't just sit for 12 hours a day or whatever. And then we got a single bed in there because sometimes I was up way too late. And so I would just crash on the bed. And then as soon as the sun hit, I would get up and just go to my desk. So I spent like most of the year within this like 10 by 12 room. And gosh, it was so hard. I remember, speaking of being emotional, some song came on by Nathaniel Rateliff. And there's like these lyrics saying like, you haven't worked hard enough. You did. And I just started breaking down and crying because I was just like, we worked so hard that year. And this was once we had like almost 200 customers towards the end of the year. And I felt like this is going to pay off. And this is the part that like, gosh, so many people don't see, because by the time you start hiring employees, by the time like you're getting that 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 customers,
it's distant memory.
Just like, oh, these guys are just made, they created this platform. Now they're like rich or whatever. And it's like, man, the sacrifice, the pain, the impact on family life, on health, on all these things.
Lots of little decisions, man. Like, am I going to answer that email? Am I going to go to my computer right now and like take the time? Like, it's a lot of micro decisions.
Oh, they say a startup isn't just one good idea. It's like a million ideas all strung together over the course of years. And it is sometimes those decisions. Am I going to do this right now? Or am I going to just like ignore it until tomorrow? Am I going to build this thing? Am I going to just keep getting up and doing this every day? And it's so hard. And yet I remember, I definitely have fond reminiscence of this too. Mm-hmm. Just like, I've never been more into anything in my life.
Yeah.
Like it became so like consuming of just like, we are going to throw everything into this. Like, we're going to leave nothing on the table. There won't ever be a reason to look back and be like, I should have done more.
Yep. No, you have to treat it like, I don't even like football, but like your Super Bowl, as good. Whereas like if you're raising $100 million and you're competing with Instagram, it's easy to be that way because like you're changing the world and you're rallying around an idea. Right. When you have niche software for veterinarians or truckers or home inspectors, like that needs to be your world. And like you have to treat it as if you're going to change the world for those people.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew. Well, this was a lot.
Let's wrap. Yeah, let's wrap here. That's awesome, dude. I think this will be great.
This has been a good conversation. Gosh, if anybody's listening has questions about us like diving more deeply into any of these pieces or concepts that we brought up, let us know, because these are the things that we're going to keep going into on the podcast. Like we're going to start first few episodes with like the broad overview, and then we're going to dive deeper into individual decision points, different strategies, anything that kind of comes up.
So much to talk through. So email us, tweet at me. We'll do more.
All right,
cool.
Joe.